Hey everyone, I'm going to do a tutorial today on how to knit German short rows. So I have a little cuff here for a sock. I'm using the 2 circular method. I have 14 stitches on each needle. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my front stitches off and I'm going to put them on a holder so you don't have to listen to the needles clanking on the table. I've never knit German short rows before. They are worked in thirds. So for me, I have 14 stitches for my heel. And that means that I will keep about 4 stitches in the middle because that'll give me about an inch. And then I'll have 5 stitches on my left side and 5 stitches on my right. So I have my yarn ready. I'm going to be starting on the wrong side. So I'm on the inside of the cuff. I'm on the purl side. I'm going to grab a contrast color just so you can see what I'm doing. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to purl 5 stitches. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to place a marker. I'm going to purl 4 more. Place a marker, and I will purl to the end of my left needle. Okay, so I've reached the end of the left needle. I'm now just going to turn my work. So I have something that looks like this. What I'm going to do is slip the first stitch knitwise to the right needle. My yarn's in the back. I'm going to bring it over the top. Now you have something that looks like this. Looks like you did a yarn over. You're going to give it a tug. See how it inverts your stitch and it gives you a double stitch? This is exactly what you want to see. Now I'm going to knit to the first marker. I'm going to slip the marker. I'm going to knit to the next one. Okay, so I knit to my next marker. I will now turn my work so I'll be on the wrong side again. I'm on the wrong side. With the yarn in the front, I'm going to slip the first stitch purlwise. Now my stitch looks like this, looks like a purl. I'm going to bring the yarn over the top and back, over the top, back through the center of my needles, so I'm ready to purl again. Now I'm just going to begin purling. I'm going to purl across to that first stitch marker. I'll now slip the marker. I'll just swap out a marker, a bigger one. And I'm going to purl across to the second marker. Slip the second marker and I'm going to purl to my last orange stitch. So I have the double stitch here. I will not work the double stitch. I'm just going to purl the orange. Okay, so I've purled. I now have a double stitch. I'm now going to turn my work again so I'm on the knit side. Turn the work. My yarn in the back, I'm going to slip knitwise, bring my yarn over and up, give it a tug. You have something that looks like this. See how it's a double stitch, and I have my second double stitch. I'm now going to knit across to the first marker. I'm going to slip that marker, and I'm going to knit across to the second marker. Slipping second marker. Now I'm going to knit. I will not knit the double stitch. I will knit the last regular stitch. So I have a double stitch here. So all I'm going to do is turn my work. I have my yarn in the front. I'll slip purlwise with the yarn in the front. Bring it up and over, so it makes a double stitch, bring it back through the needles. I will now purl across to the first stitch. First stitch marker, sorry. Slip your marker, now you're going to purl to the second marker. Now I'll slip that second marker. Now I'm going to purl all of my regular stitches, but do not work the double stitch yet. So I have 2 double stitches. It looks kind of weird on the right side compared to the wrong side, so all I'm going to do is turn my work, and I'll just pull my needle onto the cord so you can see what we're doing. So eventually, all of the outside stitches on the left side and all the outside stitches on the right side are going to be double stitches, so you're just going to work slipping the stitch, making double stitches back and forth, and then you're going to end up with these ones in the middle. When you make your last double stitch, I will meet you back here and we will learn how to pick up and knit the second half of German short rows. So you're just going to be making a triangle. That's all you're doing. Alright, so I'm at my last double stitch. So here's what I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 double stitches on this side. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double stitches on this side. So I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to slip this one. I'm going to make a double stitch. Now I have all my double stitches. See that? And the center should not be worked. This is what it should look like when you're at the halfway point for German short rows. I'm just going to double check. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 double stitches on my right needle. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 double stitches on the left needle. So before you continue, you're going to want to double check that both the left side and the right side have the matching number of double stitches. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to replace my marker. I'm going to knit to the marker. Slip the marker. And now I'm going to knit both the wrapped yarn and the stitch together like it's one stitch. So I'm just going to knit all my double stitches. Making sure I'm catching both pieces of yarn. Okay, so I reached the end of my needle, so all I'm going to do is turn my work. I'm on the wrong side with the yarn in the front. I'm going to slip my first stitch, and now I'm going to purl to my first marker. So I've reached my marker. I'm going to slip the marker. Now I'm going to purl to the second marker. I'm going to slip my second marker, and now I'm going to pick up both the wrap and the stitch on my needle as if they were one. So I'm going to go through the back leg and purl, but if you want to go in the front, that's totally okay too. I just find it easier to get into the back leg to grab both of the stitch and the wrap. Oops. And there we go. That's the last one. Okay, so I'm at the end of the needle. I'm just going to turn the work. Turn my work. I'm going to slip the first stitch purl knitwise, sorry. So I'm slipping my first stitch knitwise with the yarn in the back. I'm going to knit to the marker, the first marker. I'm going to slip that marker. Now I'm going to knit to the second marker. I'm going to slip my second marker. There we go. And I'm going to knit one stitch after the marker. Just one. I will now turn the work so I will be on the wrong side. Okay, so I have 4 stitches here and the one I just worked. I'm going to slip the first stitch purlwise with the yarn in the front. I'm going to form a double stitch. Slip my markers. Marker, you don't need them anymore. So I'll purl to the marker. I'm going to remove it and I'm going to purl one stitch, just one. I'm going to turn the work. Alright, so I'm going to slip the first stitch knitwise with yarn in back. I'm going to make a double stitch. Now I'm going to knit across till I reach the double stitch on the left hand needle. Okay, so I have the double stitch on the left hand needle, the rest of the stitches are regular. I'm going to knit my double stitch. I will then knit one more stitch, just one. You're now going to turn the work, so you'll be on the wrong side. Alright, turn the work, we're on the wrong side. I'm going to slip the first stitch purlwise with yarn in front. I'm going to form a double stitch. Now I'm going to purl across till I reach the double stitch. I've reached the double stitch, so I'm going to purl through the back leg. Again, this is my personal preference. You can purl normally. Now I'm going to purl one more stitch. I will now turn the work. I'm going to slip my first stitch knitwise with yarn in back, form a double stitch, and I will knit across till I get to the double stitch on the left hand needle. Alright, I will knit my double stitch, knit one more stitch. I'm now going to turn the work. Okay, so I've turned the work. I'm going to slip purlwise with yarn in front. I'm going to make a double stitch. I'm now going to purl across. Okay, so I've reached the double stitch. I'm going to purl my double stitch. And then I will purl one more stitch. I'm now going to turn the work. With my yarn in the back, I'm going to slip the first stitch knitwise, make a double stitch, and I'm going to knit across to the double stitch on the left hand needle. I'm now going to knit my double stitch, knit one more stitch, turn the work. Alright, with yarn in front, slip purlwise and form a double stitch. Purl across till the first double stitch on the left hand needle. Alright, I'll purl the double stitch. Now I'm going to purl one more stitch. I'm now going to turn the work so I'm on the right side. Alright, so I have my yarn in the back. I'm going to slip my first stitch knitwise. I'm going to form a double stitch, and now I'm going to knit across till I reach the double stitch on my left hand needle. I'm going to knit the double stitch. I'm going to knit the last stitch. I will now turn the work. Alright, so I'm going to slip purlwise with yarn in front. I'm going to form a double stitch. I will now purl across to the double stitch on the left hand needle. I'm going to purl the double stitch. I'm going to purl the last stitch. Alright, so I'm going to slip the first stitch knitwise with yarn in back, make a double stitch. I'm now going to knit across. I'm gonna knit the double stitch. Okay, so now I have the heel. This is what it'll look like. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the front stitches back onto a needle and I'll show you what to do next. Alright, so I have the heel here. This is what it looks like. And I have put my front stitches back on a needle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to put the stitches on the front needle. So I'm going to pick up one leg from here. I'm going to go into the cuff and I'll pick up one leg. I'll just put those on my front needle for a second. I'm just going to pick up my blue yarn again and I will knit one stitch. So I'm knitting the blue and the orange together and I'm just going to I'm going to knit across the cuff. Then when I get to the other side, I will pick up one more stitch. So I'm at the end of the cuff, so I'm now going to turn my work and I'm going to go into this orange stitch and I'm going to grab one leg. I'm going to go into the blue and I'm going to go right here. I'm going to grab one leg. I'm going to knit them together to form a stitch. Now what I've done is I've tightened this up so there should not be a hole on this side or the other side. So there might be a small hole on the side. So I do have some options. So I can come back in here and I can grab this piece of yarn right here, and if I were to knit it into a stitch on the cuff, this will pull everything together. Do you see it pulling everything together? That's an option. My other option would be to grab a piece of yarn if it's really going to bother you and darn that little tiny hole closed. Anyways, this is how you form a short row heel using German short rows, and this is what it would look like when you're all finished. And this is how you would avoid the hole. I hope this tutorial works for you. Please leave a comment letting me know what you would improve or if you enjoyed the tutorial. Thank you so much.